So hi everyone, thank you all so much for joining us today for our early careers information session. So welcome from wherever you are around the globe. So to begin with today's presentation, we are joined by two of our Masters in Management ambassadors. They will be introducing themselves shortly. I'll be going through a little bit about the London Business School community and also the program portfolio so that you are aware of all four of the early career programs that we offer at the school. Our ambassadors will also be talking to us a little bit about the support that they've got from the Career Centre and also some of their highlights so far on the programme. And if this sounds appealing to you and you are interested in applying for any of the programmes that we offer, I'll be going through the application requirements and a little bit about the timeline so that you are aware how to apply for these programmes. So just to begin with, I will introduce myself. So I am Malak Hamoud, the Student Recruitment Manager for the MIM, GMIM and the MFA programs. I will definitely recommend for you to reach out to the recruitment team before you actually apply or before you start to apply. As you can see, we have the recruitment inboxes. So the MIM and GMIM actually share the same inbox. So definitely email us on that. And if you're interested in the MFA and MAM, you can find their inboxes on the screen. It's super important for you to reach out to the recruitment team because we're able to give you a CV review to check your eligibility for these programs. We can give you some tailored feedback on ways to improve your profile to make it a bit more competitive. We can also offer a phone and video consultation. We can update you on relevant events that go on virtually at the moment because of the current situation. And we can provide overall application support. If you email us with any questions that you have, we'll be able to also give you some relevant materials and online resources to help you with that as well. So without further ado, we can start to meet our lovely ambassadors who are here. So we're first joined by Claudia. Claudia, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, nice to meet you all. My name is Claudia. I am Portuguese and right now I am in London doing my Master's in Management at London Business School. So prior to that, I did my undergraduate degree in Business Management also in London at Queen Mary University. And straight after graduation, I joined LBS. So don't really have that full-time work experience, which is why I wanted to decide to do a master's. Throughout my LBS journey, I was involved with several clubs, also became a student ambassador, which is why I'm here today. Post graduation, I will be joining a boutique consulting firm in London as an analyst. So if you guys do have any questions on that, feel free to open those questions. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Claudia, for that introduction. And we're joined by Heejun.
Yeah. Hi guys. My name is Heejun. I am South Korean. I studied English literature in South Korea as well. I wanted to get into LBS because I wanted to shift industries. I wanted to learn and actually participate in something that was more practical. And so at LBS, I've been actively recruiting, making connections and participating in clubs. And yeah, I'm still looking into jobs. I am passionate in building a career in consulting.
Fantastic. Thank you, Heejun, for that introduction. So I'll just introduce, some of the four key factors that really stand out and that are part of the LBS experience. I believe one of those is definitely our faculty. The faculty works at the forefront of innovative business thinking, influencing business leaders, managers, and policymakers across the globe. The school's vision is really to have a profound impact on the way the world does business and the way business impacts the world. And we actually do so by drawing a lot of strength from our cultural diversity at the school. London as a city offers wealth of culture. The location is perfect for work opportunities. You are located very close to London's financial district, which is a bonus. And also I think what ties in hand with that is the global mindset, which is crucial. So you'll be learning from people from all over the world, and who actually come from different industries and different levels in their career, which I think is fantastic. And I think that all kind of makes up for the LBS experience as a whole. I think what else is really important to talk about is the reputation and the rankings at the school. You know, I think it's very important to invest in a very well-known post-grad experience in school, because, you know, you are definitely, it is something that's gonna, you know, take some time. It's obviously an investment in time and money. So I think this is something that's very important to take into consideration when choosing your school. We are ranked second best, the second best business school in Europe by the Financial Times. The MIM, as part of the early career programs, the MIM is ranked third in the world, and it's #1 in the UK. And also our 2-year MBA program is ranked first in the world. So the postgrad, your postgrad degree is really, like I mentioned, an investment. And we believe that this experience is something that's going to stay with you for life. It's something that's going to be on your CV for a very long time. And we believe the network is something super important. So it's crucial for you to dive into these sort of things. I believe it's important as well to have a look at the employment report for you to be able to see the success of the type of students that we have that graduate from the school. The employment reports are quite lengthy. They are 8 to 9 pages long, with a thorough dive into all of last year's class. So each year we publish an employment report for each of the programs, which dives into who recruited the class, where they ended up working, where they came from, and where, you know, which industries they went into. And I think the success, because it's, you know, you want to see the return of investment in this sort of thing. And I think the employment report is a great way to do so. And this kind of leads us onto the faculty, the research. Some of the programs have actually been running for a very long time. The MIM, one of them, been running, I think, for over 10 years now. The way it started is very different to the way this year we run it out. This is because there are evolving changes in technology and you know, what we face now in today's economical climate is very different to the way it was 10 years ago. And we believe our program should also be changing and evolving along with the face of business. And I think this is what's made us quite successful. We have to reflect the changes in information and technology always. And I believe the type of research that our faculty do definitely contributes to that. I would say have a look at the website where we have a lot of information on each of our faculty's profiles. You can learn a little bit about them, about the industries that they do, and you can also dive into some research, which is obviously what's making such an impact. And also the outstanding peer group. I think this is something that a lot of our students talk about, and I'm sure that the ambassadors today will be able to shine some light on. Each year we have around 2,200 students on campus across the 12 degree programs we offer. There's over 130 nationalities represented on campus. But I do just want to kind of ask our students today about, you know, how they found that being an international student. How was it for you to kind of joining this community, and what experience you had with that? So if one of you wants to go first.
Yeah, Claudia, do you want to go first?
Sure. So for me, I think, first of all, the international prospect of a school was already very important for me when applying, which is why I think LBS stood out for me. The main reasons are because I really value an international experience, and growing up, I also went to international school, and I understand how that shaped the different aspects of who I am. So I wanted to continue that experience. And I mean, when LBS says that they are really international, they really mean that they're really international. And I know a lot of schools claim to be extremely diverse, extremely international, but I think at LBS, it was actually almost a shock as to how international it was. It's something like 97% of the MIMS or the early careers are from other countries. And I think in my class, I only knew about 3 to 4 English people. So that's how internationally diverse it is. And I think that's so valuable because you're able to really get a different perspective on different topics and have really productive conversations. And I think not only does it show in the students that the school is very international, but I think you can also see that the school really values different cultures. So we have whole events that are just dedicated to celebrating other people's cultures and celebrating the differences that are present in the school. So I think that was extremely interesting to see throughout the program.
Absolutely, Claudia. Yeah, and I know as well, it's not just in terms of diversity as in culturally, but it's also in terms of people's experiences. I mean, you guys are able to share electives with not just early career students, but students from all the other programs. Eugene, do you want to shine a light a little bit more about the electives or how that has been for you or how insightful it's been?
Yeah, sure. So just to add a bit onto what Claudia said about diversity. So yeah, it's very international and it's also very diverse in terms of what kind of experiences students have. A lot of students have business backgrounds. They have backgrounds in engineering or languages like me, and it's something that is very diverse. So you can really learn from everyone's experiences. And I think in the electives, especially, this is useful because in the electives, you get to meet not only MIM students, but students from all different programs. So it just gets even more diverse in the electives. And I was very shocked in a way by how diverse it was. And I had a lot of group projects in the electives. So it was a very good opportunity for me to interact with a lot of different people.
Absolutely, I think that's something, your network, what you grow at the school is something that definitely stays with you. So thank you so much, both of you, for sharing that. So I'll briefly just go over the early career programs, so the 4 programs that we offer at the school. So we have the MIM, which is our 2 ambassadors. They are studying this program. It is a very popular program. Basically, all of our programs are full-time programs. So for anyone who's wondering if they can work at the same time, the answer, unfortunately, is no. I get that question a lot. And we have the MIM, the MFA, and the MEM, which are all 3 programs that are full-time, and they are 1-year programs, except for the GMIM. So the GMIM is a 2-year program. It's identical to the MIM in the first year, and you're obviously located in London. However, in your second year, you are then in Shanghai at Fudan University. And for all 4 of the programs, we only have 1 intake per year, which starts in September. And the entry requirements for all 4 are for you to have 0 to 2 years of postgrad work experience. So your postgrad work experience is counted from the time that you graduate. However, any type of internships or experience that you have throughout your studies or before that is definitely a bonus. So it's something that we definitely consider when reviewing the application. And in terms of the GPA, we look for a GPA of 3.3 or above, and that's for all of the programs that we offer as well. So we can start off with the MIM program. So you can see there are a lot of different components in terms of, you see all of the core courses and the different aspects to the program. It's fantastic that we're joined by 2 MIM students today, so they can probably share some light on a few of those experiences. So I'm not sure who wants to go first.
You can go first, Hee-jun, this time.
Yeah, sure. So in the MIM course, it's very unfortunate to say that I wasn't able to participate in the gifts because of the COVID situation. However, I did get to participate in extra electives, and that was quite interesting for me because I got to take a negotiation elective, which was very interesting. It's an elective about negotiation tactics. And like I mentioned before, I was able to interact with a lot of diverse people and make good connections. And I also took another elective called supply chain management, which was very technical. We had a lot of simulation games that we actually had to apply the knowledge that we learned in class into the simulation game. So I think in terms of electives, it's quite, it was a very interesting part of the MIM program for me because I was able to handpick the courses that I wanted to participate in, and I got to meet students that were interested in the same thing and also interact with different people and just experience the diversity that LBS could provide me with. Yep.
Fantastic, that's great.
Yeah, I was going to say for me, same thing with Heejun. Unfortunately, I was not able to go on GIFT. However, I did participate on the London Lab. And I think we all did, which is a really interesting experience. If you don't know what it is, basically, you basically work with a company, a real life company in London for about 5 weeks, 5 to 6 weeks, I believe. And throughout that, you are working with the clients to provide a solution to the business that they will actually implement and take into practice. So you work with teams of 6, and I worked with a very bright group of colleagues, which was really interesting and very, very rewarding as well at the end. And I had the chance to work with Accenture, and we worked on a responsibility AI project. And it's actually really, really interesting because you do get to do, you know, all the Zoom calls and all the conference calls with the people from the business. So we had the chance to talk to, you know, the head of AI at Accenture and work with them as if we are real life consultants in that scenario. So that is just kind of an example of the hands-on approach that LBS really pushes forward and the kind of practical experience that you get while, you know, studying at LBS. So I think that was really valuable to me, and it was really interesting to see how that planned out throughout the whole 5 weeks as well. To have that continuity of a project is, I think, it's really important to learn. So yeah, that was a really good experience.
That's great, fantastic. And that definitely, you know, that leads us on to the Global MIM and all of the other programs that we're going to discuss today, very similar. And you can see here the different components as well, part of the program. With the Global Masters, we get a lot of questions as to, you know, what type of students actually apply for this sort of program. It is, you know, a little bit longer. It's a 2-year program, but normally what we find is students who are interested in this program are normally students who speak multiple languages, are probably interested in working in Asia because your second year is based in Shanghai. But, you know, it just depends on where you want to go in your career. We also find that some students have had some exchanges abroad or have had some international exposure. So that's the sort of profile that we find the type of students who apply for the Global MIM. It's not required, but you know, this is just from our experience, what we find or who we find applies for this sort of program. And it is a double degree. So the first year you'll be studying, doing Masters in Management, and the second year it's International Business. So you'll be graduating with 2 Masters with the Global MIM. And then here you can see just a brief overview of the MIM and GMIM class as a whole. I know we get a lot of questions on how many students are on the program. We're so proud to say it's 51% representation of female students on there, which is fantastic. We're really looking to keep that going. And on average, it's 23 years average age because the entry requirements you will see for all the programs is the same. So the average age does tend to stay the same. And we have 48 nationalities represented on these 2 programs. And a big question is also the GMAT. So we've put here the average GMAT score for you guys. I would say for the MIM and GMIM, a good score will be around 650 and above. I think that would be a good starting point, and we're really pleased to say that both of those exams are now available online for you to take because of the current situation. So that's something important to bear in mind as well. Just moving on to the MFA. which is our Masters in Financial Analysis program. This is a finance-focused program, as you can tell by the title, and by the core courses. The core courses are focused around 5 financial pillars, one being corporate finance, asset management, accounting, financial markets, and financial economics. And also the projects are quite similar, like the MIM. So they have the GIFT and they have something called the London Business Challenge Week. All of these sort of components within these programs, you can find information about them in a bit more detail on the website. You can also find the full list of the electives for each of these programs as well on the website, with a brief overview, just in case you guys are interested. And with the MFA program, we have 157 students this year. We have 31% female representation. It is a little bit difficult within a finance course to get that female number up. And we have 42 nationalities represented. And for the MFA, the GMAT score is a little higher. We have an average score of 711. I would say a score of anywhere close to 700 would be a very competitive score to aim for. And then this leads us to the MAM program, which is our new program. It's the first year that we run this program. It's for students who actually enjoy working with data. So it accumulates, as you can see here, the machine learning, data science, and business and management courses as well. So it's really aimed for individuals who want to tell a story with the data that they work with. So yeah, it's all data. It's quite hands-on. We look for individuals who have some experience in this, whether this is within the academics or whether they have actually some work experience. There is a third essay question for the MAM, speaking on the experience that you have with data. So any data knowledge with things like coding, Python, etc., is definitely useful. So that is the MAM program in a nutshell. And this year we have, it's the first year, so we have 79 students to start with. We have 39% female representation and 31 nationalities represented on this program. And the average GMAT score is 697, so just shy of 700. And I thought that the ambassadors today can really shine some light on a little bit about their career journey. The Career Centre is definitely a core element of the programs at the school. A lot of early career students are doing these programs because they want to kickstart their career, and they obviously want great opportunities after this program. So the Career Centre definitely plays a role in that. So I was just wondering if Claudia and Hee-Jun will be able to share a little bit on, how they got that support and what they really, how this actually impacted their careers, or what they gained from it, from this experience.
Yeah, of course. I guess I'll go first, Hee-Jun.
Yeah.
So I think there's definitely a lot to gain from the Career Center at LBS and the overall assets that LBS gives you to prepare for your application journey. So I think, first of all, the Career Center itself, it's very, very useful. So they have people who are like generalists and they understand what you need to apply. And for example, if you don't know what industry you want to go into, if you don't know exactly what trajectory you want to take. So coming into LBS, I knew I wanted to do consulting, but I also wanted to explore tech. Maybe I also wanted to explore a little bit of consumer goods. So I went to Career Center and kind of got some advice on that. And you can also meet them like weekly or more than that. And I remember someone calling like the Career Center almost like as a career therapist. So if you're like stressed, because I think applications is really, really stressful, recruitment is really stressful, and if you just feel like, oh, you're getting so many rejections, etc. For me, it was really comforting to go to the Career Center and talk to them about this. And sometimes it wasn't even just for advice. Sometimes it was just to like talk to them and like de-stress because they understand what it's like to go through that process. And also, apart from like the people who are generalists and they're just career experts, there are also people who are experts in specific sectors. So there are people that are consulting experts, people who are finance experts, etc. And you can go to those people once you're further into your application. And for example, in consulting, you can have case practices with them. And for banking, you can also like practice interviews for finance with them. So that's really, really valuable. So yeah, the Career Center is definitely one of those big assets that you can use. And I think for me, what actually helped me a lot throughout my application process was just my peers. I think because a lot of people are applying to the same companies or people who are applying to the same industries, it's very valuable to make sure that you and your friends are helping each other out in terms of, you know, practicing cases together or practicing interviews together. Sometimes someone would have already gone to an interview and they can give you insight into what that company was like. So that's really, really valuable. And I think that's one of those things that helped me the most.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Claudia, for that.
Yeah, so for me personally, I got a lot of help with the Career Center in terms of trying to understand what I wanted to do. When I first got into LBS, I wasn't really sure what industry that I really, really wanted to go into. And I wasn't sure what industries were actually available to hire me because I actually needed visa sponsorship. So the Career Center was able to guide me through the process in that way. Other than that, the Career Center, I think, has been trying to help me with CVs, cover letters. They go really specifically into helping you with whatever you want. One time I had a interview or an assessment center and I couldn't really get any information about what was being held at the AC. So I reached out to the Career Center. They told me that they didn't have the information, but they were able to actually connect me with someone who had actually worked for that company. Because they didn't have the information, they contacted alumni that had worked in the company before. And I found that personally very, very useful because it's not very easy for the Career Center to actually focus on what you need so much and contact alumni on behalf of you. So in that aspect, it was really, really helpful. And another thing is that the Career Center gives out weekly bulletins that have certain job postings that are hiring. And I was actually able to get a part-time internship through one of those bulletins. And yeah, so far, I think the Career Center has been a great help for me.
That is so good to hear from you both. I think this is why I definitely wanted to let you guys speak on this, because there's only so much we can say. You guys have definitely experienced it, so it's a little bit different from your end. So thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us, and well done for that. And you know, you've also been kind enough to share some lovely pictures here on some of the highlights. I think this is great. If you guys want to talk to us a little bit about what's going on here in some of the pictures, some things you've been involved in, there's definitely a lot to talk about here.
So for me, there are a few photos of Asia Club, which I think Claudia can share later on. One picture that I would like to highlight, which I'm quite proud of, is the one in the middle with me holding the champagne. It was taken on away day in the first month of LBS, and our group actually won all the competition. We managed to draw the best flag, win all the rounds, and we ended up being first place. So that's how we got the champagne. Yeah, and other than that, I think I can see a few pictures with during the Christmas party, a picture when Claudia and I were taking the class photo, and there are some pictures with the student ambassadors. Yep.
Yeah, and a lot of these pictures of me and Heejin together, so we have a lot of experiences together. The one that you know, pops out the most is tattoo. So as you can see, a lot of these like group pictures where we're all like got face paint on and everything. It was during this huge event at LBS called Tattoo, and they hold a talent show where a lot of, you know, different clubs participate and, you know, do a dance or do a singing routine or do a play or anything, and we did a little dance, which was really, really fun to put together. And the night overall, Tattoo was just such a great event. I think it's one of the highlights of my whole LBS experience. Here on the left hand side on the bottom is a picture of on the telephone booth of my study group. That was really fun. It was basically a London hunt, and what we did was in the beginning of the second semester, with your study groups, you went out on London, into London, and LBS had like a list of things you had to do, and the more you did them, the more points you get. And it was just like a group bonding exercise and getting to know London at the same time. So that was extremely, extremely fun. So it was just a picture of us with a stranger in a telephone booth, which, you know, brings back good memories. So, yeah.
That's great, and it's nice that you mentioned obviously your study groups, because I know this is a big part of, you know, the kind of projects that you do. Do you guys mind telling us a little bit about that and how it works, or how often do you guys have these kind of meetings with them? That'd be great to hear.
Yeah, so for us, the study groups work as a designated team that you kind of work with every group project that you have for courses. So you have 2 study groups for the whole year. The first study group is for the first half of the year. And then the second, you get assigned a different group. And the study groups for me were very, very diverse in terms of nationality, race, and also type of work experience that they had, what they studied. I think the study groups are a very good representation of how diverse LBS can be.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for me, it was a very similar experience. The study group that I had was extremely diverse. And I think one thing to highlight is you do all of your group assignments with your study group. And I think coming into LBS, this is kind of a concern of mine because I didn't have great experiences with group assignments previously at Queen Mary, or, you know, in high school or anything. Group assignments tend to be always like one person doing the work, et cetera, et cetera. But I found that at LBS, it was actually the exact opposite of that. I found it extremely, extremely helpful to have the study group there because we all had different strengths. For example, if it was a finance assignments, I would have done worse if I was doing it by myself. And I did better doing it with a study group because I had people who could help me with that. So I think going into LBS, you have to understand that everyone is really collaborative and everyone is very, very keen to do their best in the work. So no one is trying to like settle for just a passing grade. Everyone kind of wants to get a really good grade. So in group assignments, it really shows like no one is like not pulling their weights. And I think everyone tends to be extremely, extremely collaborative in those situations.
I totally agree. I think you both summed that up perfectly. And thank you so much for sharing these lovely pictures with us. It does look like you had a lot of fun. So I am just going to now quickly whiz through the different admissions requirements if you are interested in you know, any of the programs that we spoke about today. So first of all, it is an online application that you will need to complete. It is quite lengthy, so I will say if you are interested in applying, definitely open up the application from now just to have a read of the different questions in there. And that you can familiarize yourself with all of the different requirements in the online application. You will need to provide 2 references, one academic and one professional ideally. They don't have to write out a letter for you. You just need to provide their details in your application, and then they automatically receive an email from the admissions team with a quick form that they need to complete on your behalf, and they have to submit this within the deadline that you're looking to apply for your program. And there are essay questions, so it varies for the different programs. Some programs have 2 essay questions, some may have 3, so definitely have a look. And I think it's important for you to open up and read these questions so that you can kind of find out the type of research that you should be doing, the type of things that you should be looking into in order for you to be able to answer these questions to the best of your abilities. Normally they are revolved around your career aspirations and the reasons why you're applying for the program. And there is normally a question revolved around the LBS community. So of course, you know, listening into these sort of events like the info session, reaching out or listening to our ambassadors' feedback and insights is really important when you are kind of putting these answers together. And also you will need to have either a GMAT or a GRE score. That's why I did share with you the average scores for the different programs so that you've got an idea of the kind of scores you should be aiming for. So I think that's a great indicator. And you will need to provide the transcripts within your application when you submit online. If you are applying and you're still doing your final year at university, that's absolutely fine. You don't have to have already graduated. You can just attach the current transcripts or the most up-to-date transcripts that you have. And as long as we can see you are on track to achieve the 3.3 GPA or above, or alternatively a UK 2-1, that should be absolutely fine. So we get a lot of questions on selecting the references. So I have a few questions here to answer quite quickly. So who makes a good reference? I would say someone that really knows you well, someone that's worked with you well. How much weight does the reference job title have? We don't really care about how senior they are in the position. It's more about the relationship that they have with you. I think, you know, the more projects you've worked on, the more hopefully they'll be able to talk about their experience with working with you. And also a question that we get is, what if you're not looking to disclose any plans with your current workplace that you're planning on obviously going into, you know, going back to education? If in that case, you know, that is the case, I would say maybe providing us with a previous employer could definitely work. Obviously, we would prefer the most recent, but if that is the case, then you will have an option to do so. And the application process as a whole, it's very straightforward. Once you submit your application, it takes us about 3 to 4 weeks for us to review it. That review time is where we are assessing your eligibility and whether or not you'll be invited to an interview. So the interview could be face-to-face or via Skype. At the moment, they are not face-to-face. However, when they are, it could be either with the admissions team or with alumni. So the alumni actually interview for us as well. That's something a lot of people don't know. But at the moment, because they are Skype, they are all basically Skype or Zoom interviews that are being held. Once you get your interview, it takes about 3 to 4 weeks for us to give you the final decision. So as a whole, from start to end, from when you submit your application, it shouldn't take more than 8 weeks for you to hear your final decision. And now this will kind of ease us into the Q&A. So Claudia and Hee-jun will be here to answer any questions that you have. You can definitely ask them directly if you want to put their name, and then I can read them out the questions if you have any questions about anything to do with their experiences. I'm here to answer any further recruitment and admissions questions in case I maybe missed a few. If you guys have any direct questions, that'd be fantastic. And I'll be able to kind of go through them here. So if I can just scroll and see what questions we have. So we've got, what percent weightage do you give the GMAT and your undergrad score and work experience? So these all kind of go hand in hand. There is not one specific thing that has more weighting. We look for very well-rounded individuals. So of course, a good GMAT score will complement your application. Any experience that you have is definitely a bonus. So there is not one specific thing that weighs more. And as long as you have a GPA of 3.3 or above, that should absolutely be fine. I don't think you should be comparing yourself to anyone who has more than you or less than you. It's all about your profile and how you would actually add value to the program. I think that's something key to bear in mind. Here it says there's a question for Claudia. So I've watched all your YouTube videos regarding LBS. I believe you wanted to do consulting and HR before joining. Is that true? I just wanted to know what kind of horizon did LBS open up for you after joining? So a bit about your career direction now, Claudia.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for watching my YouTube channel. Yeah, I basically, before I joined LBS, throughout my undergrad studies, I did do a internship in HR, and I did that alongside my my studies. So I did that for 2 years. So I kind of understood the industry very well and became quite attached. So I think one of the options for me at the time was going into HR consulting or talent consulting. So not HR completely, but I wanted to still have that client exposure, which is why I wanted to do talent consulting perhaps. But I was also still very open to the idea of management or strategy consulting, which is why when I joined LBS, I started going to a lot of career fairs. And I think the way it opened up my horizons was basically the resources that it gave me to apply to these companies. I think prior to that, if I hadn't joined LBS, I wouldn't really have the credentials or the experience necessary to join management or strategy consulting. But because I joined LBS, I understood a lot more of the ins and outs of those industries. I understood what it's like to do a case study, for example, and I gained valuable experience in learning how to do those things, and modules like strategy, modules like data analysis, business analytics, all those things really gained value to my portfolio, which allowed me to apply to broader options. So I think those were very like key points in me leaving the idea of consulting in HR and going to strategy and management consulting.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing that, Claudia. We have quite a few questions about the GRE. I know I shared the GMAT average scores. The GRE, I would say for all 4 of the programs, I would say the scores split between quants and verbal for anyone who's interested. So I would say aim for about 160 in both components. So 160 in quants and 160 in verbal, give or take, should be a good score for those who are asking about the GRE. We also have quite a few questions about the MFA program. A few people have done the CFA level 1. So in case you have done the CFA level 1, you will not need to do the GRE or the GMAT. So the CFA level 1 will give you a waiver for that. So for any of you guys who are asking, someone is asking, is it possible to study the Masters in Financial Analysis program remotely? Unfortunately not. You will need to be on campus. So what we have is now a hybrid model for obviously the students who are looking to start in September. So for the first month, you will be kind of distance learning, but then after that, you will get into the process of you coming into campus for your classes. So hopefully things will resume back to normal after that point. And someone's asking, how important is work experience when factored into the recruitment process? So I was wondering if Claudia and Hee-Jun can help with this. So how do you feel your experience prior to coming on the program has actually helped you, or maybe made your profiles a bit more competitive, even with the little experience that you have?
Do you want to go first, Claudia?
You can go first.
Okay, so like I mentioned before, I had little experience in business because I started off with English language and literature. So in that sense, because I had some experience in LBS studying management courses, that also added to my CV. And also through LBS, I was able to get a part-time internship, which also kind of helped me a lot. So I think, yes, definitely LBS has added to the type of work experiences or experiences that I had that I could add on to my CV.
That's great.
Yeah, and I think for me as well, I think coming from a background that's not extremely quantitative, so I hadn't done any work experience in like banking or consulting before. My experience was very much qualitative, and I had done internships, for example, in sales and marketing before. So I was, of course, worried about how can I leverage these experiences to still make my application competitive. And I think that at the end of the day, it comes down to having like a unique experience and having something to show to the table. So for me, coming from an HR background, that was something that was very unique to me, and I was able to leverage that and able to explain how that would make me a better candidate because, I have the ins and outs of the company. I understand how people work on a more soft side. So I think it really comes down to, it doesn't matter what course you did or what work experience you have. I think it's more about how does that make you unique, and what did that teach you that perhaps other internships, you know, in IB or something else wouldn't teach you. So I don't think in this situation it's more like, oh, you have to have a big name on your CV to make it. I think it really is leveraging the experiences that you've had.
Yeah, I totally agree with you both. Yeah, absolutely. We have a question here that says, is it possible to apply to multiple times for a program, or multiple programs for one intake? The answer is no, you can't apply for multiple programs. You can only apply to one. However, in case of a rejection, you are able to apply in the next intake for if you are still eligible for that program. I know personally a few people that have been rejected the first time round. However, they used that time to improve on their experience, worked on a few projects, improved their profiles, and came the next intake and applied and got accepted. So that is definitely something that is possible. We have a question here for both of you guys that asks, what were the key selling points that kind of ticked the box for you for choosing LBS out of all the other schools and universities out there? So maybe what was the reason for picking this program and school?
So for me, before I got into LBS, I had a lot of questions about whether I should invest in this, whether it was worthwhile. And I reached out to a lot of people that were actually doing the program, or people that had done it before. And I got the feeling that everyone was they seemed very satisfied with the kind of experience that they had. And they also told me that there was a lot of diverse set of experiences that you can get just apart from getting a good job or studying management courses. So they told me that you can make good connections, you can get a real international experience. And I think the type of communications that I had with the alumni, or the kind of help that they gave me throughout my application process, that kind of ticked my box, because it seemed like a community that was very inviting and very helpful to each other. And I definitely wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah, and I guess for me, like the same thing as Heejun. Also, I'd be lying if I said I didn't look at rankings. I think for me that was an important part of choosing what school to apply to. And in terms of Masters in Management, LBS was ranking at the top, so it just made sense for me to apply. And also, I think I was considering whether or not to stay here or perhaps go to France or go to the States. But I think for me, ultimately, it was very important to stay in London. So that's how I narrowed down my choices. Within London, there were 3 schools that I was looking at. So it was LBS, Imperial, and LSE. And for all the schools, I compared them side by side in terms of, you know, like cost benefit analysis, and at the end of the day, which one will help me the most in my career. And I came to the conclusion that LBS was the best option out of the 3. And the reason for that was because it has a really strong alumni network. And I think if you're coming to business school, that is going to be the most valuable thing. And I think that's going to be one of those things that perhaps you won't notice at first, but the further you move into your career, the further it will matter. So I think that's why I chose LBS, and I applied actually to LBS really early because I wanted to make sure that if I didn't get LBS, I could still apply to the other schools. So LBS is my first priority in that situation.
Great, fantastic. And we have another question aimed at both of you, which well, it's 2 questions, but they go hand in hand. So they are asking, what's your most important advice for new students? And what did you wish you knew about LBS before you actually enrolled? So any tips and advice?
Yeah, I guess I'll go first. First of all, for most important advice, I'd say if you're coming to LBS, definitely be open to trying everything. Be open to expanding your horizons. Like join clubs, join societies, get involved. I think that is one of the only ways for you to really get the value out of the program and get the value out of the school. As I mentioned, alumni network is huge. So try to go to those events and connect with as many people as you can. I think That's one thing I would say is the most important advice about coming to LBS. And secondly, what did you wish you knew? I think I had this misconception that coming to LBS or going to like a high ranked business school would mean that my application process was going to be extremely easy. That is not the case. I think application and recruitment is really hard. Yeah, of course you do have an advantage if you come from a really good school, and LBS did provide me really good tools, but I think I overlooked how stressful applications are exactly. So I think mentally prepare yourself for a lot of rejections, mentally prepare yourself for, like a lot of like back and forth, and you really do have to have like a certain tenacity and drive to go through the whole recruitment process. But I think it's like it goes the same any business school really. It's the same thing for everyone. I'm sure like recruitment is an extremely tough challenge for everyone, regardless in what school you're in, regardless in what industry you're in. But I think, yeah, it's a misconception that it's going to be light and breezy and everyone's going to end up with an IB or MBB offer. So make sure that you mentally prepare yourself for the challenge that's ahead.
For me, I think one thing that I wish I could have known before coming to LBS is that I really needed to be able to manage my time very, very well. I was quite good at that before, but at LBS, I kind of got the importance of it even more. In the beginning of LBS, you kind of have a lot of things going on. You have social networking events, you have your classroom assignments and your individual assignments, your group assignments. You have lots of other activities going on, such as the Sundowners, and the away day is also going on. There's so much that's going on that it's quite hard to make time for even a few job applications. You really have to manage your time well in order to do everything that you want to. It's a one-year program, so it's very short. You really want to make the best out of it. If you want to experience as much as you can, it's very important to be able to manage your time very, very well. And yeah.
No, I think that's something a lot of people do say, Eugene, but thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, there is a lot that goes on in the first term, and that's something I hear from pretty much all the students within the early career programs. There is a second question here that asks you guys to share some of the experiences with the student clubs that you've been part of. And they're asking if it's possible to start a new club. So yes, you're able to start a new club for you who's asking. But if you guys can share maybe some that you've been involved in. I know there's different categories to these sort of clubs. So if you guys want to share the light on all the listeners today.
So for me, I've actually been mostly active in two clubs. One was the consulting club and the other one was the tennis club. For the consulting club, I mostly joined for connections and also for job applications. I was able to do some case prep with the people that were in the club as well while the interviews were going on. And then for the tennis club, I joined because I wanted to just have some fun, meet people without having the stress of talking about jobs. So yeah, and other than that, I've been actively participating in the student ambassador events. So that was one kind of club that I would say that I was participating in.
Yeah, and for me, I guess, yeah, again, there are two categories. So on the social side, I was part of Asia Club. I applied to become a committee exco member. So I was a PR officer for Asia Club. And if you do have the chance to apply, I would definitely say apply to these positions in clubs because it gives you just an additional experience that you wouldn't be able to have. So I was able to connect very closely with the president, the treasurer, etc., all who were MBAs. So that was very valuable. And again, in that setting, it was very fun. We're just a group of friends. We would go out to eat, etc. It was very, very chilled, relaxed. And then on the other side, just like Hee-Jun, I joined consulting club. And then also I dabbled with some events that were organized by Women in Business Club as well. So those two clubs put up a lot of events specifically career events or career fairs that are extremely valuable to attend. Things like breakfasts as well with alumni or breakfasts with people in the industry, all those things are things that I got involved in as well.
That's great. That's fantastic. You were able to squeeze all of that into your year at LBS. So there's a question for me here that asks when does the early career application start for the MFA? So all of the applications open in one time. So now that the 2020 intake is closed and we've passed the deadline, next year's intake applications will open on the website late in August. The exact date is not yet confirmed. However, I would recommend for you to keep an eye out on the website for that. And then some of the deadline rounds may change from last year's to the upcoming years, but normally the deadlines are quite similar in the time that they come in the year. So we tend to have a few stages, and I believe that's what we're going to keep for the next upcoming intake. But yes, it's around August that they open. And someone is asking if I've submitted my CV for a review, when should I hear a response? So I would say no more than 5 working days, and we should kind of get back to you. And also there's a question around the transcripts and converting your GPAs. Of course, we understand a lot of our students are international students, and some universities and schools have different scoring systems. So I would just recommend that you provide us with the way it is, and we can convert it for you, just so that there is no mistake or error that could be made. And in terms of transcripts, as I mentioned, just provide us with your most up-to-date transcripts, and that would be fantastic. And then we have another question for you guys, revolved around your core courses. So was there any that stood out that you really enjoyed at all?
I think for me, I mentioned it briefly, but strategy was a course that I really enjoyed. It was very interactive. It was basically, we had a case on a company every week, and as a class we would discuss the different strategies that were taken by this company, and it was extremely interactive. It wasn't about taking notes or anything like that. It was really a class discussion, so I loved that setting and that environment. And I think another course that I would highlight is business analytics. I think even though it was quite challenging, I don't have a data background, I've never done coding or any sort of platforms like R before. I think it was really valuable to my experience at LBS. I think it's one of those things that I come out of the program thinking, oh, I really gained another skill. So that was really important for me, and I think it's paid off fruits in the end. So I'm really happy about those 2 specific courses. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I think it's exactly the same with Claudia. I was quite impressed with the strategy module because it was so interactive, especially when everyone's aiming for consulting. It's very interesting to get other people's opinion about the same case that you're studying. It really helped with the interviews, with the kind of prep that I was doing, and business analytics, data analytics. They were both very interesting for me because I didn't have a background in a quantitative area at all. I was used to dealing with literature, and then I got here, I was doing coding, I was handling data, and it was just a very big change for me. But although it was very challenging because we had a lot of group assignments, we had a lot of individual assignments to submit, I think it's one course that I can proudly say that I actually learned so much through the 2 courses that we took. So yeah, I think these 2 courses are really the highlight of the program.
That's great that you mentioned the quantitative side, Hee-jun, because we actually get quite a few questions for individuals and students who maybe don't come from a quant background or experience, or they probably haven't done any modules like that within their undergrad degree. And we do have a question here that says, or kind of asking you, how did you manage to cope with that? Because term 1 does have quite a few heavy courses. So did you struggle with that? How did you find that, just coming from a non-quantitative background?
So to be very honest, I cannot say that I didn't struggle. I struggled so much from the beginning of the course, but studying for the GMAT actually helped me a lot before. Because I had to go through GMAT, I was getting a bit more familiar, and the things that I learned in high school were coming back to me. So that helped with catching up in the first semester. And although I struggled a lot, I think I can say that it's very good to make good friends, good networks in your stream, in the program itself, because those are the people that you can learn from. You can always reach out to ask them for help, or if they're good friends, you can always just make a study group, or there's so many opportunities for you to get help that I think, although I struggled, it was quite easy for me to catch up and actually just handle the subjects as anyone else would.
Yeah. And I think for me, it was very similar. And I think as well, for anyone who doesn't have a quantitative background, LBS does have pre-courses for you to do. So you have to finish a pre-course in accounting, finance, Excel, etc. So those things kind of pick you up to speed. And also they give you an insight as to what to expect, because those would be the basics that you need to know. So if you're doing those courses and find it, fairly hard, then that's an indication that you should probably do a little bit more studying on the side.
Yes, I totally agree, Claudia. And that's for all of the programs. So you have online pre-courses available during the month of August, I believe, before you come on campus and before you start your program. It's just because obviously a lot of the students come from a variety of different undergrad studies. So it's just to make sure that everyone is kind of on the same level. And like Claudia was saying, if it is a struggle, it's something for you to bear in mind that it could be something that you need to do a bit more reading on, or just take a little bit more time on, and that's absolutely fine. But I just want to say thank you to both of you so much for supporting us today. We've now come to the end of the information session today. Time flew by so quickly. Both of your insights were fantastic. I hope that all of our listeners were able to take something from today's event. And I am so sorry if I was not able to get through to all the questions. There were so many. But I just wanted to kind of shine the light on the experiences, because we don't always have our ambassadors on hand. But any other recruitment or admissions questions, please do email us directly. I believe in the chat box you'll see the right inboxes to email us. So yeah, we look forward to hearing from you soon. And thank you, Claudia and Hee-Jun, again for supporting us. So that's to the end. And I hope everyone stays safe, and we look forward to seeing you guys and hearing from you soon.